What's the most dangerous risk you've taken in your life? As a kid, me and some friends built a bridge out of hay and wood across a dried out bog. I tested it and fell through somewhere in the middle. Thankfully, I'd read in a book that if you're being sucked down by quicksand or something, the best thing to do is relax and spread your weight out evenly. That kept my head and arms above the muck until one of my friends could find a tree branch to haul me out. Every time someone posts one of those quicksand wasn't as big an issue as I thought it would be memes, I'm like, It really depends on where you live. It can happen anywhere, but some areas are more prone to it. Sitting on the trunk of a car. Just drive slow and I'll hop off at my house. They did not drive slowly. I got to be in a coma though, so that was nice. I did this. My friend didn't drive slow either. Full arm cast for 3 months and smaller cast for another month after that. Near the end of a 68-hour week, I was dead tired and just wanted to go home. I had 3 tons suspended in the air by a shop crane and I left the remote on the other side of the load. Instead of walking around it, I walked right under it and grabbed the remote. I froze for a moment and contemplated what I just did, put the load down, clocked off and went to sleep thinking about how much of an idiot I am. Been there. It's a wake-up call. Rearranging anti-slip mats under a 20+ ton load, between the load and a semi-load trailer. Just do it real quick and hope like frick. I hitchhiked across a province, and at nightfall after getting soaked during a downfall, people tend not to pick you up during the rain. I was exhausted and so defeated, and so I accepted a complete stranger's offer to go to his cabin in the woods for the night. Stayed with a stranger whom I just met after a concert when I had nowhere to stay that night. Wasn't sexual. He didn't try anything or insinuate that I owed him anything. Just a nice bloke offering the spare bed in his hotel room. I went to a festival alone when my friend ditched me, and nice people gave me a bed each night. 3. Went with some friends to a party, we drove there. Unfortunately, everyone including myself got plastered. The party was in a bad neighborhood in the Bronx and I insisted that we chip in for a cab because driving drunk would be stupid. I was called an idiot, moron, then told if I don't like it I can walk home. Frick that, I know my life is worth it, so I just headed off towards the Grand Concourse. This was back in the 80s, bad times then. Walked about 15 blocks avoiding groups of people, especially the ones shouting at me. Got tailed for a bit by a group of older guys and made a mad dash for the subway. It was 1 AM. The station was empty and it took me 2 hours to get home. Next day I get a call from one of my friend's parents. They were upset with me for letting them drive home. They got into a fender bender with a cop car. Yay karma. I laughed when she told me what happened, then explained that I was the one that was put down and told to walk home if I didn't like it. They wouldn't take a cab. She apologized and I made sure that every one of those shats weren't part of my life anymore. Whoa. I'm glad you took that risky decision. I think it's worth it. I was traveling with a friend and she decided to buy some weed in Cambodia. When we were going back into Thailand I told her to just get rid of it. She was like, nah, I'll just put it in my bra. I was slightly worried Thailand will frick you up if they catch you. When we got to the border there was a massive sign saying, drug smuggling under penalty of death. I was like, get rid of it. She looked about and saw that there wasn't anyone there. So she said, now look, it's empty, we'll be fine. We were shepherded through this corridor, what mazed round to this other outside room with about 6 guys with rifles hold the leashes of sniffer dogs. My heart freaking dropped, and I started freaking sweating. I turned to her and was like, what we gonna do? She snapped and said, just freaking keep walking. We got the 2 guys who then told us to split. Girls on one side, guys on the other. I got sniffed to frick by all the dogs. I looked over and there wasn't a single dog on the woman's side. We walked through and we got back into Thailand. It was the scariest few minutes of my life. It wasn't even good weed. I know someone who got caught with a few ecstasy pills on him in Thailand. Life in prison. Wouldn't let him return to the UK. He was 23 at the time. Been there 7 years. Last thing I've heard, his parents visited him and nearly all his teeth have fallen out. Not allowed toothbrushes in there as inmates make weapons out of them or something. I am in no way an expert hiker, but my friends and I hiked the Stairway to Heaven in Oahu when it was pouring rain, which is definitely not recommended. But when is the next time I'm gonna be in Hawaii? The wind was crazy strong and the ridge was so muddy. One wrong step would have meant guaranteed death. Was the most adrenaline pumping experience of my life. I am a rugby player and was a bank teller in 2009. I'll never forget the date. The 9th of October 2009. A group of 5-6 burglars stole $47k from an ATM. I was doing some maintenance. When they ran out of the branch, every one of them but one went to the right. The dipshit who went left was carrying the money bag, and my rugby instincts instantly kicked in. I ran after him for half a block and tackled him from behind. The look of despair in his eyes when he saw crazy teller, it's one of the memories I'll never forget. We tried to punch each other, with no success. When he realized I wasn't letting him go away with the cash, he threw the bag in the middle of the avenue and ran away. The whole action lasted about 60 seconds, I believe. Afterwards, I couldn't stop thinking, what if? What if he had a gun? What if he had someone waiting him in the direction he went? My mother wanted to kill me, but I got promoted. Good times. That's pretty unusual you got promoted. Typically they fire you, and I'm not joking. They don't encourage people to go after thieves as the risk of lives at stake are too high. My best friend and I used literally every last dollar we had in college to buy some magic mushrooms. We decided to take them at our favorite dive bar, which did not go well. She spent most of the night puking in the bathroom, while I was sitting alone tripping balls. Some men came up to me, probably just to hit on a single gal, but honestly they just looked like gremlins and I was visibly afraid. A guy friend at the bar even came over to check on me because by the look on my face, these men just threatened to burn me alive, but it was most likely completely innocuous. Anyway, the bar closed and the college safe ride had an over 2-hour wait. This was before Uber and we had no money for a cab. We were sitting on the sidewalk outside of the bar trying to figure out what to do. We called everyone in town we knew for a ride. Everyone was out of town, or drunk, or not answering. We were desperate to get home and saw some guys getting into their cars in the street in front of us. We got up and explained how we were stranded and needed a ride. A large man passing by heard our dilemma and grabbed my friend by her arm and insisted he would take us home. Out of instinct, I trusted the other guys in front of us and tug-of-war style pulled my friend into the other stranger's car with me. He told the large man to frick off. He was taking us. We didn't know him at all, but he was the lesser risk and we took it. He turned out to be a really nice guy and I'll always be thankful to him for getting us out of a sketchy situation. That's legit terrifying. I think the difference between the stranger you hailed was that he wasn't actively trying to get you home. He was just trying to respond to someone who needed help versus the other dude who sounded like he was trying to take advantage. Walked through the woods to smoke weed with some buddies. One of my friend's dogs followed us. We were about to cross the Amtrak train tracks when I heard a high-pitched whine. Looked down one side of the tracks to see the headlight of a train speeding towards us, about a quarter mile away. These trains travel at over 100 miles per hour. My two friends, being high, got spooked and ran after I yelled about a train coming. I turned to walk away and out of the corner of my eye see Holly, my friend's dog, just staring at me while standing right in the middle of the tracks. I ran as fast as I could to her, grabbed her by the collar and pulled her off the tracks. I wrapped my arms around her and pulled her in close as the train sped by, inches from my body and the scared pooch. After the train passed, I turned around to see my friend's chest deep in stagnant pond water yelling that was awesome. Situational awareness almost got me killed because I decided to save the dog. She has since passed. R.I.P. Holly, you were always a good girl. This story gave me so many emotions. I was 10 riding the DC Metro for the first time by myself when I dropped my keys on the track. 2 minutes till the next train versus 5 seconds to get my keys from the track, so I jumped down. It's harder than you think to get back on those platforms. I've both hitchhiked and picked up hitchhikers. The one time I did it myself, my car broke down on a road trip, so I needed to catch a ride to the next town and then again back to my car. I've picked up people from time to time, never had a bad experience, but I know it's probably not the best idea. Maybe it is not particularly safe, but now you have a lot of stories to tell. Not a traditional risk, but probably adopting our son when we had a million reasons to say no. A little over 13 years ago, my wife and I got a call from our adoption agency asking if we would be interested in an adoption situation that just came up. We did want to adopt again, but we got the call a little earlier than we expected and the baby was already here. We didn't know much about him other than that he was born premature, had a heart defect, little information on how severe, and that his birth mom wanted to close the adoption. We also had an 18-month-old daughter at home and my wife was at work when they called. We had limited time to make the decision and my wife and I talked it through when she was on break. We decided that there was every reason to say no and such few reasons to say yes. But we said yes anyway, even though it made little sense at the time. I'm thankful for that decision every single day. Our family is perfect the way it is and my son brings so much joy to our family. He's the kind of kid who motivates everyone to be a better person. His heart defect was corrected in infancy and he's doing great other than the annual exam to check on things. He competed in a youth triathlon this summer and is playing football at the moment despite being much smaller than his teammates. He's planning on running a 5K in a couple weeks. He's high energy and always out doing something. My kids are very close as siblings and I truly couldn't imagine a world where one is without other. The smart decision would have been to decline, but I'm grateful every day we took the risk. Cliff dived about 60 feet down a rocky waterfall going off the word of a stranger. You'll be fine. Just aim here so you don't hit a rock. Not that dramatic, but I was hiking lava rocks. Came upon a pretty deep crevice and thought that's an easy hop across. Tried to jump and made it barely because of wildly pinwheeling my arms and teetering on the other side. Realized that I based my entire judgment based on whether I could have made it in Assassin's Creed. You could have always just grabbed the edge and jump, and that's also Assassin's Creed. I rode a 50cc moped 35 miles each way between two towns in deer country, often at night, usually in dangerously cold conditions, for 5 years, close to 20,000 miles. It sucked. Most people never even see you. Kids like to throw cans and bottles. Once I had a guy move out to pass me just as we approached a doe and a fawn in the road, in fog. He had the clear lane, but he hit the brakes, forcing me to thread the needle between the mom and the fawn. Another time my brakes overheated coming down a mountain, and as I stood there waiting for it to cool, one of the biggest bears I've ever seen wandered by and stopped to check me out. Bigger dogs can actually catch you as you pass. I laid it down in a turn once, was run off the road innumerable times, and once had my side view mirror tapped out of place by a passing dually. Years afterward I was explaining to a fellow who knows better that the first half hour of the 90+ minute ride was the worst, because after that I would stop shivering and sort of fall into a trance. That, he explained, was hypothermia setting in, 5 to 7 nights a week, about 9 months out of the year, for 5 years. Hey, it got me here and there was no other damned way that was going to happen, so I count myself lucky to have pulled it off and eventually clawed somewhat out of poverty. But I think I ought to be dead 1,000 times over. I think I might know you. Walked through Camden NJ drunk at 1 AM for 2 hours. Wandered away from a concert by the water. GF couldn't find me. My phone died. I was carrying a stick. I remember hopping fences. Saw someone just after they got stabbed. Just kept walking and using the stick like I was hiking. Then got tired, so I sat on a curb, and somehow the second I sat down my GF pulled up to the same traffic light. She stopped a cop to ask for help. Cops said he will either be in the hospital or jail tomorrow. Go home, get rest and call them in the morning. We live 2 hours from Camden. Holy frick, you shouldn't walk around Camden during the day, let alone at night. Not me personally, but my friends. My friend had her 15th birthday out of town with a bunch of friends. Her mom booked one room for the 3 boys and a suite for the 10 girls. We mainly hung out in the suite, but at curfew, 10-11 PM, mom would send the boys to their room. Next door, there were balconies off each room with a foot between, so the first night we all just piled out on the balcony and kept talking out there. The second night we decided that was too much effort, so the guys jumped from their balcony to ours and then back to their room. Did I mention we were on the 12th floor? We risked death for an extra hour or 2 of chit-chat. Chit-chat. I was walking home one night from a friend's house in high school, and it was gonna be about a 10-mile walk. I wasn't looking forward to it and my dad wouldn't come get me. So I've walked about 3 miles and it's about 1 AM. This guy in a truck comes by and asks if I need a ride. I'd been smoking weed and really didn't want to walk. Usually I'd never accept a ride from a stranger. I accept and he starts driving. He keeps asking me if he tried to have sex with me what I'd do, and all these weird sexual questions. I discreetly pulled out a knife and kept dodging his questions. I think at one point he chickened out and dropped me off at my apartment, but that was the dumbest thing a teen girl could do. My friend had been raped by men offering rides after high school and I could have been raped or murdered. Or worse, expelled. This will make me sound very stupid, but there was a box in the middle of a highway at night. I've heard horror stories of people in my state dropping boxes of nails, kittens, and other things to kill or harm others or what's in the box. So I pulled over to get the box out of the way before the next string of traffic came through. I ran to the other side of the highway, got the box, looked. There were no headlights in sight. Ran back to my car just as a motorcyclist came zooming down the highway doing well above 60. Yes, I was dumb. Yes, I could have killed us both. No, I will never do that again. That doesn't sound like you were dumb. That sounds like the dumbass riding a motorcycle at night without a headlight and speeding was dumb. Jumping off a 30-foot cliff while buzzed. I learned my lesson after I was deaf most of the summer and will not be repeating it. Was volunteering at a prison education program, discussing books, supposed to be leading the conversation, but I'll let it spin wildly out of control and somehow the group ends up discussing rape and, specifically, someone says how it's impossible to rape your wife. I correct that guy, it's absolutely possible. It's about consent, not if you're married. Another guy says, well, crap, then I guess I've raped my wife dozens of times before I got in here. My sense of self-preservation completely vanishes for a second in favor of being frank and I respond totally from the heart. Yes, you have. And if it was up to me, you'd never get out of here. Instantly, I become aware that this is, hands down, the stupidest thing I have ever done. This guy is in for assault with a deadly weapon. He's got 50 pounds on me and gold teeth. He's 5 feet away with only air between us. The guards are 50 feet away, behind a cinder block wall. If he wants to hurt me right now, there is absolutely nothing that's going to stop him. He stared at me for an eternity. Then he laughed and clapped me on the shoulder. I understand the risky situation, but I am happy you did that. Hopefully that guy has changed his mind. Probably not, but NVM. Doing H every day, multiple times a day, for about 3 years straight. You never quite know what you're gonna get. Did it get stepped on a whole bunch? Did someone mix fentanyl in with this batch to give it some legs? Is this just coffee creamer with part of a flavor packet of beef ramen mixed into it? Who knows? Back in my heyday, some buddies of mine and I would find a log and throw it into this river. Then we would all jump in and ride this log down the river. At the end of the ride we had to jump off and swim through some rapids to get to the shore before we were sucked up against this grate that went under somewhere. Thinking back on it, I can't believe we survived. Took a day off work to see a girl I liked. Ended up having a real nice, chill afternoon at the docks smoking a joint and having some beers. Decided it would be a good idea to take her jet ski to a nearby, 10 km away or so, island and spend the rest of the day there. That we did. Then we took it back in the middle of the night, pitch black, somewhat drunk, almost crashed into a pier. Still one of my favorite moments with her. Was in Egypt and took an Egyptian Air Force C-130 troop flight from Lake Nasser to Cairo. It wasn't until after we boarded that we realized the plane was also carrying around 15 pallets of fuel oil that appeared to be hastily strapped down, and a pilot who had questionable flying skills. Keep in mind I was young, dumb, and ignorant. I was out partying with some friends in my hometown. I lived in my dorm at school about 30 minutes away. We drank some, and I ended up accidentally tripping on acid. Someone slipped it in thinking I'd have a good time and I tripped for about 8 hours. The people in the apartment, besides my friends, were well-known drug dealers and kinda shady people. Not good. The next morning, I had passed out on the couch. I was still intoxicated. Afraid to stay there any longer, I get up and attempt to drive home. I don't remember the drive. What I do remember is getting back to my dorm and passing out for over 24 hours. I woke up and told myself how stupid and irresponsible I was for driving under the influence. I no longer do drugs and rarely drink. How anyone can think someone will have a good time after unknowingly ingesting hallucinogens is beyond me. That stuff can sometimes be terrifying even if you are prepared for it and know what you're getting into. I went to see Tool by myself in a city 5 hours away from my home city. I got to talk into these two very nice fellas sitting in front of me and even hung out with them a bit after the show while the one went to get his t-shirt. They were kind enough to walk me to my car, so I accepted their invitation to go back to the hotel with them for a couple of drinks. They wanted to pick me up at my hotel, but I refused and insisted on driving myself. No one who knows me or cares about me had any idea where I was, or that I was even out of town going to a show by myself. As I walked through the parking lot of their hotel, it occurred to me what a stupid and dangerous thing it was I was about to do. My mother would kill me if she knew. It was fine. Nothing untoward happened. They were really nice, kind, decent gentlemen who behaved themselves. I drank maybe one beer. One of them was ex-military and also ex-cop. The other one was current, active small town cop. The cop was nice enough to do a little sobriety test before I left to make sure I could get back to my hotel okay. I did. The not a cop packed my bowl for me when he returned it, which I never even noticed until I was like halfway home when I decided to stop for a little break and oh would you look at that, my new friend left me a present. I texted him what a badass stud he was. We are still FB friends and whenever I pass through that town, I hit him up and we get coffee or something. Nice dude. The cop dude had some rage issues, so I quietly ghosted him. It could have turned out ugly, but it didn't. So it was super risky, but in the end, was just a nice story about making some new friends at a show. Dangerous as in risking my life or similar. Doing electric work around the apartment without shutting down the main fuse. Freaking lazy. I'm not doing this anymore. I always make sure the circuit is cut fuse. Dangerous as in economically. Buying golf clubs without telling my so. Oh. Could be life threatening. Don't know which one is worse. Let my friend drive me home while he was drunk. I was also drunk and didn't really think about it at the time but it's the dumbest, most dangerous risk I've ever taken. He drove home after he dropped me off and crashed his car. Luckily nobody was hurt but we both vowed never to let that happen ever again. I walked home from a bar near LACC. It was about 1230 AM. Walking down Broadway and 36th St. in Los Angeles. A guy turns the corner and shoves a gun to my chest and lets me know I'm being robbed. I empty my pockets and he asked me where I was from. I'll let him know I am not a gang member. He searched me for tattoos and emptied my wallet. It was horrifying. I didn't know what this guy was going to do. He told me to walk away and not to look back. That was horrible. I managed to get far enough to run. I waited at a gas station for a while. Eventually, I got home. I fought this guy who came to view my apartment, which I was subletting the year I was 23. Like an idiot, I was showing it to PPL alone. This dude made an appointment, showed up the next day, and then grabbed me from behind when we got to the bedroom. He had a knife and a big roll of duct tape, which he'd concealed in his zipped up coat. He pushed me down on the bed, straddled my back, and told me to just do what he told me to. He pulled off my glasses and threw them onto the floor. Then I heard him rip a strip off the roll of duct tape. I don't know why, but that just instantly pulled me out of my shock and fear. All I was thinking was, I might get cut stabbed, but he's not duct taping my mouth shut. Not without a fight. We ended up tussling for 15 or 20 minutes, and somehow I slid enough out from under him to grab onto one of the bedposts and eventually get onto the floor. Miraculously, he didn't use the knife on me. After a while, I could feel him getting frustrated, and I just started talking. You don't need to do this, man. Please. My brother just died. Truth. And if anything happens to me it'll kill my parents. Please just go. Please just go, etc. And eventually, this dude said, okay, but if you tell anyone, I'll come back and cut your throat. And I heard his footsteps leaving the room. I waited a minute, then got up and walked through the apartment to go lock the door. Then I called the police. probably the biggest risk I've ever taken, to resist a guy with a weapon who was trying to do me harm, but I'm glad I did it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.